Schwab Network. It's time for our cash tag segment. For that, let's bring in our next guest. It's going to be Landon Swan, co-founder at Lightfolio. Welcome back to the show, Landon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, big day today. Tesla, down 17% so far this month. That's on the back of the We Robot event that kind of disappointed investors at this point. But what kind of data are you guys reflecting here? Because it seems like the bar might actually be low in Tesla. Typically, we talk about it being high, but do you have data that backs up maybe the weakness that we're seeing? And what are your expectations here?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at what happened with the stock after that event, it sold off, and it's basically been, kind of sideways, right? I think everyone's waiting for the earnings report now. I kind of expected it to bounce a little bit, but now I think this is the opportunity. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But, we know that, the data is kind of so-so on Tesla. I wish it was great because this thing has a tendency to move pretty big on earnings. And so you can, there's some opportunity there, but we don't have a real strong score away from neutral in either direction. Unfortunately, the web data is looking okay. It's I think it's +2 on a year-over-year basis. +6 on a year-over-year basis. The deliveries were up. The price has been lowered, so people are worried about margins. I know that the auto division was down a little bit, but overall, I mean, it's basically, are you betting on the future of this company, or do you think it's just a car company? So, if it's just a car company, then I think the valuation is probably a little high, and that's why people can sell, right? I think that's what makes sense. But if you believe that, as Elon Musk says, that they're going to solve autonomy, they're going to solve automation with vehicular travel, then this is definitely a pullback worth buying into if you think it's more than a car company. So, when you look at what they rolled out, and we talked a lot about this, but when you look at what they rolled out, the robo-taxi is obviously, it's aiming high. It's going to, they're looking to release that in 2027. And the first step is having full self-driving. They're going to release that in Texas and California next year. I think it might be limited just to the Model 3 and the Model Y, so we'll see. But if you can get that full self-driving go, where there's no one monitoring and it's actually just the car driving, that is obviously a huge step. And then you're going to have the robo-taxis going. Of course, they've also talked about the van that carries 20 people or a bunch of goods, sort of that last mile delivery. And then one thing that doesn't get a lot of press because it's so far down the road is the Optimus robot that every household could have someday in the future, that at the cost of basically a car. If they actually execute that, I think that this is a huge game changer for not only the company but the economy of the world. So I'm pretty bullish. Full disclaimer: I've got a lot of shares of Tesla. It's a big part of my portfolio. But when we look at the data, we know that the things have kind of slowed down a little bit for Tesla on the car side of things. When we look at them versus GM, for example, who just had a really good report. GM had stronger numbers on their cars than Tesla does. And so it doesn't surprise me that GM did really well and Tesla's kind of holding back. But again, I think it really comes down to the question that investors are asking: is this a car company or is it more than a car company? And I think for sure it's more than a car company, just based on the vision of, not only Musk's vision, but the company as a whole and what they've been able to achieve. I mean, if you rewound, 15 years ago and said, hey, somebody's going to make an electric car that's faster than gas powered cars and can drive itself, you'd say that's crazy. That's never going to happen. And now it's a reality. And now they're saying, hey, we're going to have cars that can drive themselves, pick people up on their own. You're going to have a robot in your house. We're going to compete with FedEx and UPS with last mile delivery, and everybody's saying, I don't really believe you. So it's just a matter of, can you believe the track record and what they're projecting out into the future or not? If it's just a car company, again, price is probably just a little too high. If it's more than a car company, this is a great buying opportunity.
Landon, you're answering my questions before I get to ask them. Please stay with the program, will you please? This company, the Bears are going to scream that. Right? The Tesla Bears are going to say it's a car company. It's valued way too high. The Bulls are going to say it is cars, but it's solar panel, it's energy, it's solar panels and Powerwall and Megapack. It's home and supercharging. It's We Robot and Robotaxi, Robocab, all those things. What What is the thing? Try to describe Tesla to our viewers in a realistic way. We know what the bears think. It's autos, right? But when can we start putting future products like robotics and RoboCab into the mix, right? When do we start counting that? Because the stock probably is already a bit, but obviously it was up towards 260. Now it's 214 going into this event today. So it's backed off from there. Your thoughts?
Well, I think a good mental exercise is what would happen if Tesla today came out and said, you know what? We're just going to be a car company from now on. We're scrapping all the robo stuff. We're scrapping all the robots, all of that. We're going to focus on cars. And I think the answer is very clear. It would sell off like crazy, right? I mean, no one's going to own this at 215 if that's truly what this company is. So that premium that we're all paying as investors is the possibility that it could be larger, right? So there is a difference between what the price would be if that's what they did and what the price is now, and that's that premium. Now, there's also some uncertainty built in, right? We don't know when they're going to execute, how well they're going to execute, and all that. I think if the past tells us anything, again, I think it's that not only can this company, but Elon Musk execute really well. Of course, those two are going to happen, so I'm betting on that. But there is uncertainty. So if all of a sudden we knew for certain that in 2027, robo-taxis are going to be out, and in 2029, every house is going to have an Optimus, then what would the stock be? I mean, it'd be over $1,000, I think. So there's that. It's just basically you're paying a little bit of a premium, and you're betting on execution and vision, right? We know the vision's there. Can they execute? They have in the past, so I'm willing to bet on it. But that's really what it's all about. I mean, this is an extremely aggressive, forward-thinking company that has shown the ability to execute across all kinds of arenas. And so I think that some of the claims, again, they would have seemed outlandish years ago. They've been hitting those marks, whether or not it's this specific year or 6 months later or 12 months later, whatever it is. I think eventually they get there, and I think it's going to be transformative. So I do think that one day we're going to look back and say, man, they invented these cars that could go to 0 to 60 in 2 seconds and drive on their own. Why did we not think that they could have cars that had no driver? Why did we not think that they could execute last mile delivery? Why did we not think that they could actually build these robots? So I think in hindsight, we're going to look back at 215 as a fantastic buying opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the problem that a lot of investors have with this that might be on the bearish side, Landon, is the fact that, polarizing CEO here who's, doing his political thing right now. Maybe he's not focused enough on it. He's got all these other projects that he's working on. And if he just focused and then actually delivered on those things when he says he's going to deliver, I agree with you. Probably the valuation's warranted and maybe it does go higher. But is that the caveat here for this report? And what if we don't get anything on that cheaper car that's going to compete more with China? Because China's ramping up across the globe right now with cheaper EVs. And is that a problem? And what's your earnings score?
Sure. A lot of questions, Tom. Let me go first with Elon Musk. I think that, yes, I think that is somewhat of a problem for investors because, generally speaking, I always talk about it. Companies should stay out of politics because when you don't know as a consumer, you kind of just assume that the company probably agrees with you. I think most people tend to do that. If you like the product, you're like, they probably agree with me. But when you come out one stance or the other, and we've seen it a million different ways, then all of a sudden half your customers are like, I don't know if I like this guy. I don't believe in him anymore, right? So I think that is definitely a problem for the company. In the end, it's going to come down to whether or not they execute and what's the bottom line. All investors, no matter what political side they're on, they like bottom line. So I think if he can deliver that, fantastic. The other thing about Musk that's kind of unusual is, and I agree with you, Tom, like in my mind, you got to focus, right? I can only do one, maybe two things great at a time. I think that for whatever reason, this guy's a little bit different. And he has the ability to do a lot of things at the same time. And so I'm just going to put an asterisk next to him and say, you know what, that rule doesn't apply to him. Let him go land his rockets with the clamps and do all the crazy stuff that he's doing. He can also build cars. So that I'm not too worried about. I do think, though, that you're right. The car company side of things, we've got to hear something good on the low price model. We've got to be able to compete with China very quickly because, yes, we are betting on the future of all the great things that Tesla can do, but we've got to see a solid car company being executed in the meantime, right? That can't fall too far behind. It can't be all betting on the future. So there's a mix of that. Overall, though, we are very bullish long term. Short term, though, because the data is just not great, and I don't think they're going to have wonderful answers going into this about all of the car aspect side of things. Our score is actually only a +5, so it's pretty much neutral, which is disappointing because, again, this stock is a history of moving significantly on earnings. So if we had a good score, I'd be ready to place a big bet. But right now, I'm sidelines as an earnings play. As a long-term investor, I think this is a buying opportunity.
Yep, and maybe you do get that pullback if it's not great news that investors like, and maybe you're going to probably buy some more shares, Landon, at this point if it does pull back. All right, great stuff as always, Landon. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that's Landon Swan, co-founder at Folio.